This is Today's Business Leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
All right, so on today's show, I have Pam Savino back with us. She has been on at least once, I think once or twice so far, and she is early in her entrepreneurial journey from like a timeline standpoint. But what has been really, really interesting to me in working with her for over a year now is how she really runs her business and her life from an energetic place, from an intuitive place. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Some really exciting, fun things that are coming up with Pam is she has a book coming out in the next few months. We don't have our official date yet, but we'll have that soon. And we started out when I met Pam, she reached out and she was referred to me from a longtime friend, John Sarasani, who I've done business with for probably 10 years or something. I don't know, a long, long time. And he referred her over and we had a conversation, and she originally had just the idea to become a life coach and wanted to start marketing that and promoting that. And as we started down that journey, some very interesting things started to happen. So I'll let you kind of take it from there and share what it's been like to, kind of realize that you wanted to be entrepreneurial. You start the process, and then I feel like it's been fireworks energy wise. So what has it been like, and tell us kind of how you got to the idea of writing the book and just what, because I feel like you, again, like kind of what we're going to talk through today is everything that you do is from a place of intuition and from a place of energy. And I don't think that that's always the first path that entrepreneurs take, but I in some senses, I really think it should be. So tell me what it's been like over the last year or so now.
Sure. Well, like you said, when I started off, I thought, well, I was trying to think about what I wanted to do professionally, and just helping people, giving people guidance. It's something that's kind of always come naturally. So I knew I wanted to do something kind of in the coaching arena. I wasn't quite sure. I was thinking maybe fitness and nutrition. And then I started to go down the spiritual path. So I wanted to be a spiritual life coach and thought, well, I'll just work with a handful of clients here or there, kind of, in between taking care of my kids and driving and all that, the mom stuff that I do. But it started to expand pretty quickly. And I decided that, as I started to work on things and think about, I think at one point you even had me going down the path of, just kind of starting small, like just maybe writing a 16-week course series. And, and that's just, I do things based on how I feel. And I felt like my message, I wanted to disseminate my message to a broader audience. So that's when I shifted gears and said, we need to go really big, and we're going to start off with writing a book, cast my net wide, get the message out there. Because I just felt like I wanted to make a broader impact much sooner.
Yeah. And it's been really amazing to watch because I mean, I'll be honest, at first I was a little tentative because I was like, taking a book on is a kind of a big project and you want to write it all. And I'm like, so we'll write the outline and we'll start the process. And I'm very pragmatic and just watch what happens and observe things. And I'm like, all right, I'll just see how she does with it. And if it's going to take, 6 to 8 months or a year, or maybe we'll shift gears later. I've had people start books and not finish them. I have a couple books I've started that aren't done yet, and I have a couple finished ones. But it's a huge undertaking. And so you started writing this year in middle of February, and then you were done with the draft in like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's 100,000 words long.
Turbo mode is my favorite speed with anything.
Yeah, I was absolutely blown away at how fast you cranked it out. Because it was because you had like a couple weeks off for vacation in the middle of it, but you had a draft to me like I think May 1st or something. Right. And I mean I've never experienced that in my life. And so it was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just, shut up and not worry about these big ideas that come down the pike. So.
And again, with that too, like I just was, I was allowing it to just unfold. I mean, and that's just a testament to if you're aligned with what your passion is, what your purpose is. If, it fed me as much as I poured into it, I got back. So it was just this continuous circular energy that just kept flowing. And the more I poured into it, the more I got back. And so I just let it flow, organically. I didn't force it. I just, I just focused on it. And, and like I said, it's all about being in alignment. And I know that's probably a pretty deep topic to get into today. We will at some point in future conversations, but, going with how you feel, I poured my heart and soul into it. It fed me back. It energized me. And it just, I was in alignment with what I should be doing. I have no doubt that this is my purpose. So
Yeah.
that's why it's unfolding the way that it is. Nothing that I do feels forced. And sometimes it does. It starts to feel forced. And that's what I know to stop. I know to stop and switch gears. I've gotten to be very, very acutely aware of when it's time to walk away from things, anything, whether it's in my personal life, professional life, when things aren't meant to be in our lives forever, and if it starts to feel forced, it's not meant to happen. Things are meant to flow. Life's meant to be easy, and vibrationally, it's just all about figuring out where you are, and the universe will always put people and experiences and things in front of you that are meant for you. And, if it's not flowing, then it's just not meant to be.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's such an interesting, it's so interesting for me to look back of how the universe brought us together to work together, because in January of 2018, I really dove in and took a much deeper look at intuition and really tuning in to the universe more, and really developing a much, much higher level of empathy than I had previously. I wasn't without empathy before, hopefully, but I just really became just aggressive in how deep I wanted to understand those things. And then as soon as I feel like I went through 3 or 4 months of really deep work there, then you show up and you want to work with me, and you are crazy, crazy high on the energetic level, and, just totally understand the energy of the universe at a different level than I did at that time. And it's been such an amazing experience to be able to work with you, and then read your book draft. And it's one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And, people who know me, when I say that, you know what I mean? Because I read hundreds of books. I read 50, 60, 70 books a year at least. And I was just blown away by what the wisdom and in the book and the whole story. And what you just said really rang true with me, because you say when it's forced, we shouldn't do it, and everything should be easy and it all should flow. And now I really believe that and really understand that. But 3 or 4 years ago, I still had, a belief that wasn't serving me well, that was well, you have to work hard and you have to struggle and you have to push through things, which we all need persistence. I'm not saying that you don't need that, but I now really believe that I just listen to how my body feels, and intuitively what's going on, and energetically what's going on. And as a super simple example, and then I'll get to a question here that I think will really help everybody. We got crazy busy beginning this week, and I had to send out 8 quotes, before I leave and come hang out with you and work on, our new project that we're doing. And I was well, I got to get it done before the end of the week, because I don't want to do it on the weekend. So I was going to stay up last night and just stay up till 12 or 1, which I do on occasion. I don't do that a whole lot anymore. And I got done with a call, and I'm you know what? It doesn't feel right. I'm not going to do it. And I just went to bed, and I wake up today super energized, ready, just blew through all the work. In the past, I would have just forced myself past that feeling that had told me to go to bed and get rest. But the difference is when you listen, everything works out. And choosing to listen to my intuition and the universe and the energy, around me, led me to having a really great conversation with somebody I've done business for a lot of years, and they have something, huge that they need help with. And I don't think I would have been in the right frame of mind if I would have pushed myself too hard last night for no reason. And so I think sometimes that people are afraid of listening to their intuition because we're indoctrinated with almost an industrial revolution mindset still of you got to clock in, you got to do it this way, you got to do everything in this prescribed way. What helped you learn to trust your intuition and not be afraid of it? Because I'm sure it wasn't always the way it is for you now.
Oh, no, definitely not. I mean, it's something that I've refined and kind of cultivated over the years through various experiences. And I've just come to know that, or come to see and trust that, the universe will always have your back. So, and it's normal for people to be scared to walk away from things, for example, to disengage, walk away, thinking they need to, stay in the situation and, like you said, push through it, try to fit a square peg in a round hole. We live in a universe with, billions of choices in every single aspect of our lives. So, whether it's relationships or whatever, there's 7.4 billion people in the world. So, you need to learn to recognize when things have run its course, move on, and you have to clear the space, and trust that the universe will always replace it with something that's, that's in your highest good. And I think too, it's, you have to balance, we're kind of conditioned to, work hard, push through it, just push through the grit, the grind, just crank it out. But what nobody talks about is you can still do that and feel really amazing. I mean, that's really kind of the winning combo, is that you can work really hard, but you can also feel really good doing it. Writing this book in 2 months, wasn't easy. I mean, I was up many nights till 4 a.m, but I wanted to. I felt amazing. I felt energized, and that's what kept me coming back. So I think that's the key, is nobody really focuses on how you feel when you do things. And that's really the key.
That's a really good point, because you're right. Because like when it's work that you're supposed to be doing, that you have passion for, it's effortless. Yeah, you may work a bunch of hours, or it may be super hard, in the sense of it's challenging work. But yeah, it's really that driver and that passion that carries you through. And when that's not there, then it becomes hell. Like, then this is, why am I doing this? And like, it's just really difficult. And so, since I think a lot of us reach, young adulthood and have lost all of our childhood intuitiveness, or buried it is a better way of saying it. We haven't lost it.
Right.
How do we start to figure out, like, oh, this is really where I should go, my passion, where the universe is taking me, where energetically I should be being or working. And there is hard work and there's stuff you have to do, as compared to what we get kind of conditioned into, like, everything's hard and this is just the way life is and there's no passion or energy inside of it. Like, how do you start to peel the layers back from that and figure out which is which? Because you and I understand this now. It's pretty easy to be like, oh yeah, like, but it wasn't always like that for me. And I don't honestly know the full process I went through. I was a little bit in the dark in the beginning. And so what do you think is the process that people need to begin in order to figure that out? Because obviously it's different for everybody, but there's got to be a starting point.
Yes, exactly. I was just going to say that it's highly, highly individualized, based on, I'm never a big fan of, 10 steps to happiness or 10 steps to whatever, because that kind of sets up, the reader for an expectation that they're going to achieve a certain goal. I think I'm such a firm believer that everyone already has their answers within them. First of all, we're so conditioned to look elsewhere for answers. Ask our parents, ask our friends. We're constantly taking surveys. Should I, I'm at Baskin Robbins, should I get vanilla or chocolate? It's like, you already know what you want. So I think that we already have our answers, and I think the secret or the answer is to just go within. Our lives are just so incredibly complicated these days. We're bombarded with, between social media and just unlimited access to other people and information. I mean, it's no wonder that we can't, connect with our intuition and connect with our higher self. So I think the answer is to unplug as much as possible and just go within. I'm a huge fan of just time in nature, going outside, going for a walk, going for a run. Just disengaging as much as possible. I think we need to pay close attention to how we fill our time, how we fill our discretionary time. Obviously, we all have things we need to do during the day, but, look at your discretionary time and make mindful decisions about how you're spending it. Most of what we do is just distractions from real issues. It's distractions from what we feel and what we know within. It just keeps us, focused on the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should have, things that they enjoy, recreation, whatever, but we have to look at it and say, at what point there's a fine line between, recreation and addiction, recreation and distraction. And I think it's just, the answer is becoming acutely aware of where that is and making mindful decisions about filling your time up with productive things, doing things to connect to your higher self. Creative endeavors I'm such a firm believer in those. I think everybody should be involved in some type of creative endeavor at all times. And I'm not, it could be anything counts really. Anything that doesn't have a prescribed, formulaic approach counts. So it could be, coloring with your kid on the driveway, doing a painting, with chalk or whatever. It could be art, music, dance, writing, photography. Any of that counts. And, you don't need to aspire to be the next Van Gogh or the next Ansel Adams or the next Mozart. Just do something. It engages a different area of your brain. It relaxes you. And I think that is really the key to connecting to your higher self and really accessing your intuition. Because we all have it. We all have it. It's just that it gets crowded out by the busyness and the craziness of everyday life.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And there's one thing that that I really didn't pay attention to until, I was more aware of this, that I think is something interesting that people could try potentially as an exercise. And maybe you have other things too. When I go into a restaurant to order, I don't like making choices like that. Rachel cooks all my meals for me all day when I'm home, and I don't have to choose hardly ever. So it's just something I just don't enjoy. But when I go into a restaurant, I just open the menu, and the first thing my eyes land on is always what I'm supposed to order. And then I order it. It's delicious. It's phenomenal. And I just thought it was just me being lazy at first. So I was like, all right, I'm going to test this and order something different. And then, and kind of compare it. And when I don't follow that path, I really don't enjoy my meal. It's it doesn't come out right, or it gets screwed up, or it wasn't quite what I wanted. And so now I've learned that that's just following my intuition, following the energy that I should, and doing, taking that process. And so I totally agree that doing the creative work and changing things up and slowing down and having that type of creative output and, reflection has been, really key for me to start to listen to what's already there. And one of the examples out of your book that I thought was really interesting that I think maybe you can talk through, because it's definitely the universe speaking to you, and intuition and all this is, you had obviously this huge life-changing experience of going through an unexpected divorce that you turned into an incredible and positive experience for everybody involved, including your ex-husband. And the universe was telling you ahead of time what was going to happen, and you started seeing something. Do you want to tell us about how the code and the signs that you were seeing?
I sure can. So for about 3 years, I had been seeing a code 1118 in various places, license plates, on receipts. And, it got to a point where, I realized, I've been plugged into universal energy for a while, very aware of messaging and synchronicities. And, I knew that there was some meaning there. So when I went to see one of my spiritualists, I asked her, I said, I've been seeing this code 1118. What does that mean? And she said, on March 8th, so March being the third month, 1 + 1 = 3, 8, the universe will send you a sign. The universe will send you a sign, and it's going to be pretty clear as to what your next decision is going to be. And I'm like, we're kind of coasting here, no decisions to be made, whatever. So, and I said, well, what do I need to do? Do I need to meditate? What do I need to do to receive this information? And she said, nothing. Just go about, your daily routine, and it will come. And sure enough, on March 8th, I did, and I'm not just going to spoil it. We'll let the book go into the details. But on March 8th, I did receive a sign from the universe that made my next decision very, very clear. So it was just about, again, and this is nothing specific to me. The universe is communicating to all of us all the time through words, music, song lyrics, poems, other things, anything that seems, there's no such thing as a coincidence. It's all communications from the universe. We just have to kind of raise our antenna and just be willing and able and be in a space to receive those messages. So it made the decision very, very easy. I felt like the universe had just kind of, ushered me to a place where of complete surrender and peace and tranquility and acceptance. And it was pretty clear, the next step I needed to take.
Yeah, that was amazing to read that part. And there's so many other things like that that you share that are in the book that are just amazing when you, like you said, surrender yourself to the universe and let things happen. And one of the beliefs that I have, come to have and has always been true throughout my life, but now I see it and believe in understanding, is that everything is beneficial, that the universe gives me everything. So it's like there's really nothing disappointing or bad or, forever sad. We all have emotions, but there's really nothing that has to stay in that state, because it all ends up being incredibly beneficial and incredibly valuable to me. And I really like what you said last time we got together and shot some of the videos that are on your site. One of the things that you said is, one of my missions in life and why I'm here is to raise collective consciousness. And I just think that is such, it's so true about who you are and the whole message for the book and just everything I've experienced with you. And you're so tuned in at a level that, is just, it's unusual in like a really, really special and cool way. And I love that you bring awareness to people that are not spiritual and are not energetically connected. And I'll have you tell one other story, because I don't think it'll spoil the book. And I think it's a great example of, obviously you go through this divorce, and like, as with most divorces, it ends up that you're going to move out of the house you lived in, and it's going to be sold. And so, and the way that you talk about it in the book is that your ex-husband is not super spiritual or energetically connected, or like, that's not really his thing, but you were able to show him how the universe works. And I feel like really open his eyes to something really amazing and cool. And so I'll let you tell the story about what happened with the house deal. So.
Oh, sure. So when we were talking about the specifics of the divorce and the living arrangements and everything, we both, what the original plans were, that I was going to stay in our marital home, just to kind of keep one thing constant, mainly for the kids, so that we didn't have yet another change to layer on. So, a couple of months after that, I decided, I think I'm just going to start getting some, MLS listings, and just kind of have, just have my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the market. Because I figured, eventually, I'll move. We don't need that much space, forever. So a house came up on the market in my old neighborhood. Immediately, I just felt, I'd been in the house many times over the years, decided to buy it. So it was kind of an unexpected move. Obviously the universe knew that I needed to move, but I acted on that with full intuition. Mark's like, I didn't think you were going to move, whatever. I'm like, I didn't think so either, but I am. So anyways, we sat on our marital home. We didn't do anything for a while because we were in the middle of the divorce, dealing with all of that, 2 moves, he had bought a home. So we just wanted to make sure that, everybody was in a good place before we layered on yet one more thing. So we put our marital home up on the market, and this is not just any marital home. This is a custom built home. We meticulously appointed every single square inch of it. It's amazing. Poured my heart and soul into it for a couple of years. It served its purpose, but it was no longer congruent with the direction in which I wanted to take my future. So we decided to sell the house and put it up on the market. And the expectation for a home, we had looked at market data, and everyone was like, it's going to take a minimum 18 months to sell. Like, data is irrelevant. Statistics are irrelevant. And this is coming from an actuary, someone who studied math and statistics for years. Now I go about it the other way. Now it's like, I'll create my reality, create my reality. And then statistics can conform to that. So I go about it kind of the other way around now. So put the house up on the market. I think we had it under contract initially within 6 to 8 weeks, which was unusually fast. I even remember a discussion between me and Mark. We were trying to decide, we needed to fill up the house with furniture for staging purposes. So we were having a discussion about whether to buy furniture or rent it. And I'm like, well, let's just rent it. It's only going to be there we're only going to need it for a couple of months. He's like, no, we need to buy it. It's going to take 18 months to sell. This is, it's whatever. So I'm like, okay, fine. I don't think so, but fine. So the house was under contract in 6 or 8 weeks, and it just didn't feel right. During the inspection, things were just not unfolding organically. It was not going smoothly. And it got to a point where it was feeling too forced. And I just said to him, and it was a very attractive offer, quick close. And, it's just not something people walk away from, you know. And I remember I was in Mexico with some friends for spring break and my kids and my real estate agent, and, you know, and she was there with me, and I finally said, we need to walk away. We need to be done. So I had to convince Mark. I remember, like, I was just pacing poolside with him on the phone, like, we need to walk away. He's like, do you know how much the carry on this house is? I'm like, yes, I know. I write, you know, I deal with all the finances of it every month, you know. And he's like, you know, and I said, you just have to trust me. I implored him to trust me. And he's seen me do this before. I've done it with prior house sales. I've done it with various things in our personal life. He doesn't understand it, you know, and that's okay. Like, everybody's where they're supposed to be. And I got to the point where I've stopped trying to be the teacher. Like, here, this is how it works. Then this is how, you know, I just kind of let people just observe.
Yeah.
And, he allowed me to close, you know, to totally abort that deal. And then I said, trust me. I said, there's another buyer out there. I said, these aren't the only buyers in the world. I said, someone else will come in. And I said, oh yeah, that's right. And I just remembered. And then we also changed the garage door code in the process. So my agent said, well, what do you want the garage door code to be? Let's change it. And I said, how about 0518? I said, May 18th. I said, if the house is going to close in May, probably, you know, around the 18th, give or take. And sure enough, we closed on, like, I don't know, the 24th. Another buyer dropped in, super, you know, cash deals, just super smooth. And it went totally flawlessly. So that was just, again, me trusting my intuition. And I was really grateful that Mark allowed me to, because it was a big deal. Like, you just don't walk away from a deal like this, but it was because I knew it wasn't meant to be.
And at the end of that, he said something interesting to you, or as it was actually closing for the final owner. Do you remember what you put in there? Because it started, you know, the new buyer came in, and which I don't know if we can mention who the buyer is or not, which is fine. But the new buyer is very interesting in itself. It's very serendipitous for our whole story. But you know, he comes in and it closes, and then Mark was like, I guess you're right. Like, it all worked. Like, you know, it's crazy. I never thought it would happen. And I think that's how I remember you sharing the conversation with me. And as you start to follow your intuition, as you start to really listen to the universe, as you really start to live from an energetic place, people will start to notice. And whether or not that's for them or not, they'll just understand that that's how you operate, and that, you know, you can tap into that higher, you know, power that the universe gives us, and that you don't have to have it all figured out, and you can't figure it all out. So. And
I think there's obviously an element of risk, right? Mm-hmm. Some people are, you know, people have different tolerances for risk. But you know, I've gotten to become very comfortable with risk, you know, and it's because I see that it'll always be replaced with something better. The universe will always pop something else in it always has your highest good in mind. So I think that's the issue, is that we as humans think we know everything. We think we have access to all information, but really what we have available to us in this physical world and through our five senses is really such a small fraction of the knowledge and the wisdom that's out there. And if we just trust that, you know, the universe will take care of us. We may not have it all figured out, and that's okay. We don't have to have it figured out. But you have to be willing to take a leap of faith. You have to be willing to take a leap of faith and just trust and know that, you know, things could actually work out better than what you anticipated.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's what I love about working with women entrepreneurs like yourself is I have another client in Michigan who's really similar to you, completely different industry. But she runs her entire business off of intuition in an industry that nobody does that. Like, it's all data, it's all statistics, it's all technical. And she tells me sometimes, she's like, just so you know, that person's going to resign in our company. It's okay. And here's the plan and what we're going to do. And then it happens. and by all outward signs and by profession of that person, they said they loved it there and everything was great. And she just like super pays attention to that. And it's something that I think all wise entrepreneurs would be, you know, wise to listen to and follow and figure out, how can I really listen to my intuition more? How can I, you know, listen to what the universe is telling me? How can I step back from all the data and noise in front of me? Which, I mean, you have to know that stuff as a business owner. You can't ignore it. But how can you step back from that and not let that be the only driver of your decisions?
Right. I think like you, going back to your menu example, you know, I mean, that's your your body knows. I mean, that's a heart-centered decision.
Yeah.
Is when you start to scan the rest of the menu, now that's a head-based decision. Now you're overthinking. Now you're in overthinking territory, and that's never where we want to be. Like I said, we all have our answers, and our body will naturally gravitate towards those answers. So the key is to, focus on what is your initial reaction. What is your gut feel? I use that term all the time. What does your gut tell you? I don't care what it says. I don't care what everybody else around me is saying. What is my gut telling me? And it's just about just becoming acutely aware of what that feels like, what it feels like. And then, looking back and, on your life, where in my life did I not trust my gut, but should have? Because we can all justify, you can pull in you can pull in logic and analysis and data to support whatever, decision you come up with.
Yeah. And like in the deeper parts of our mind and our soul and our spirit and the pieces that we can't explain scientifically yet, maybe someday we will be able to. What I find really interesting, and over the last year and a half or almost 2 years now, I've done reading on both sides of the table, so to speak, of like just purely energetic people that just follow your energy. This is how it works and how it happens, which is absolutely true. And then I've done a ton of like scientific reading about how the brain works. And I believe it's a combination of both the energy that the universe gives us and the fact that what we don't always give our minds and our bodies credit for, that, the universe created and whoever put us here and however that happened, is that we collect all that information all day unconsciously. So when your intuition is telling you to do something, it is actually also from a place of data. And, when you look at that side of it, and if you try to figure it out too much, then you're going to override a system that is so strong and so powerful and is connected to the universe. And like you said, you're going to look at things that are just going to blind you from what you already inherently know in your gut and your heart. And the more you tune into your heart and you listen to that, it's so amazing. And something really interesting that I learned relatively recently that I didn't know is that the same neurons that we have in our brain are in our heart. They're the same kind of cell. And so your heart does actually think for you. And when you get your brain and your heart in alignment and the brain waves and the heart waves match, they've actually measured this scientifically. That's when people are the healthiest and the calmest and they make the best decisions, because you're in total alignment inside your own body. And it's super interesting. So I just think there's so much power here. And I think that as entrepreneurs, we've got to, we do need to know our numbers and do good business. You have to be responsible, but we also have to expand above and beyond that to really reach our full potential.
I totally agree.
So, yeah. So tell us a little bit about who you're looking forward to working with, like on the coaching side, and a little bit about what we were talking about right before we got on, the new thing that you're going to do soon.
Oh yeah, can't wait. So I've got some individual clients that I'm working with. So my areas of specialty are, I love health and wellness, anything having to do with creating a holistic lifestyle, improving, mind, body, spirit, helping people establish healthy practices. I love to do consulting kind of around food and food prep, because, fueling our bodies is just is the most important thing, we do every day. So, focusing on nutrition. I can do divorce consulting, helping people reclaim their identity, find their path after divorce, or really, anybody in the midst of any life transition. Spirituality is obviously, what sets my soul on fire. So helping people, become in alignment with who they are, find their purpose, tap into their intuition, live from a heart-centered place rather than, a head-based place. Life is just so much richer. And I've gone through, I wasn't born, living this way. I went through some pretty challenging life experiences that some of which I talk about in the book that allowed me to craft my belief system. So I'm just so passionate about helping people to reflect on their lives and craft their belief system and create a lifestyle that is full of purpose and meaning.
Awesome.
Yeah. So.
And the other exciting thing that will be coming out relatively soon is Pam's going to start her own podcast. So it's going to be amazing. And this we'll kind of wrap up with this story. As I was getting ready to get on the interview here today, I was like, oh, Pam should totally do a podcast. So I jumped on and we were getting ready to record and stuff. And I told you that. And then what did you tell me?
Numerous people have told me that recently. I said,
Yeah.
I'm super excited, for my book launch. I'm going to be on, as a guest on other people's podcasts a couple times a week. And I'm excited about that. They're like, you should totally do your own podcast. So I'm like, okay, done. Where do I sign? Let's do it.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting. Like if we listen, just like we kind of talked about earlier, like there's always patterns, there's always signs, there's always things being pointed out. And all we have to do is be open to them and be aware of it. And it's just like yesterday, for the third time in a week, somebody said, oh, I'm reading a book called Deep Work and you should read it. And I was like, done deal. I'm going to read it now. Like random people who don't know each other without, me asking like, what are you reading right now? I said, oh, you should totally read this book, Gabe. You'd love it. And like, so it's so cool when we just listen, and are open and, come into life without judgment and just as an observer, and waiting and listening for what the universe is going to give us and what our heart, is already kind of building on the intuitive side. So
Right.
It's been,
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was going to say, and when you, like you said, when a couple people affirm that or validate that, pay attention. The universe keeps sending you messages until you get it, no matter what it is, whether it's a lesson you need to learn or whether it's a direction in which you need to take your life. And that has happened to me numerous times. Recently, numerous people, some of whom were perfect strangers, said, you should totally have your own podcast. And this is after like a 3-minute conversation with them. Prior to that, people have been telling me for the last few years, you need to write a book. Certain people in my life were like emphatic about it. You need to write a book. So I just wasn't ready at that time. I was writing snippets and I would, and I saved all of that. But I knew when it was time to eventually write a book. So, but pay attention. The universe is relentless in its attempts to communicate with you if it wants to get your attention on something.
Absolutely. Awesome. So thanks so much for being on today. Anybody that wants to learn more about Pam and what she's up to, you can go to liveauthentically.today. Her site's there and you can contact her. And of course, you can comment here in the group or reach her on Facebook. And we will be having you back on soon. So thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.